This is WAB's Week in Review with me, Alex Helmick, and on this show we look at stories from your WAB news team over the last few days. Coming up, some advocates say Fulton County is making it difficult for families to hang on to their longtime homes. It's all because of an issue with the tax break known as homestead exemption.
I'm on pins and needles on whether or not I can afford the next tax because taxes are not going down, they're going up.
That story in about 10 minutes. But first, officials at the Atlanta-based Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, say they've complied with the recent Trump administration orders to the United States Department of Health and Human Services that relate to diversity, equity, inclusion, and gender. WAB's Jess Mador reported that story.
Some pages are truncated, some have data missing, and some are down entirely. All web pages now show a line reading, CDC's website is being modified to comply with President Trump's executive orders. The impacted topics include LGBTQ health, HIV and AIDS, and the so-called Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System. That's a regular survey of young people about their habits, experiences, and mental health. In a statement, CDC officials say any changes to HHS division websites are also being executed in accordance with the Federal Office of Personnel Management. Jess Mador, WABE News.
Well, a bird flu breakout at a commercial facility in Georgia as well as in other states has forced the culling of millions of chickens, and that is forcing prices up. Georgia-based Waffle House restaurants are now charging an extra 50 cents for every egg sold. The breakfast food chain has over 2,000 locations in 25 states. WAB's Marlon Hyde had the story.
Darlene McCory pulls up to an Atlanta Waffle House after working a late shift. She notices a bright yellow and red poster in the window that says 50 cents per egg.
So I'm about to order extra egg now, so I know I got to pay the extra, 50 cents? Yeah.
In the end, it didn't stop her from ordering her All-Star special. Waffle House says that an unprecedented rise in egg prices is forcing the surcharge on its most popular item, one that Waffle House regular Halo Harris may be skipping for a while.
I saw that on the news this morning. I'm not finna buy it. I'm gonna get me some grits and sausage and keep it pushing.
So you're skipping the eggs, but you're not skipping
eggs.
Waffle House. Waffle House serves approximately 272 million eggs a year, according to its website. Sina Golar is a business professor at Georgia State University. He says it was a good idea for Waffle House to focus only on raising egg prices.
This will actually have the effect of pushing customers to order items that don't have eggs. So it might actually help balance demand a little bit and move pressure out of eggs and onto some other items.
The American Egg Board says 50 million laying hens were lost to bird flu in the past year. Golara says the future of egg prices is not yet clear.
Very hard to tell because a lot of it also depends on the virus progress itself.
Until the virus weakens, small business owners like Karima Goodman have to decide whether to pass on the cost to customers. She runs Sweet Brown Sugar Bakery.
As a business owner, you have to take the hit on the eggs, especially when eggs make up 90% of the ingredients in the bakery.
With prices still rising, some grocery stores are running out of eggs. Others are limiting the number of eggs people can buy. Marlon Hyde, WABE News.
Food prices up. Utility bills, too, for many, they continue to increase. State lawmakers are taking a closer look at the demands on water and electricity in Georgia, especially brought on by big energy consumers like data centers. WAB's politics reporter Raul Bali had more.
Republican State Representative Brad Thomas of Holly Springs is leading a new House committee on resource management.
Data centers, I think, was probably just the straw that maybe broke the camel's back. The utility usage on data centers is high, and it's gathered the attention of a lot of people.
Thomas differentiates the policy challenges around water versus power.
Water absolutely is, I would say, the biggest piece of this. We already have a solid regulatory structure around that. The water piece, on the other hand, is a lot more of an open book. I'd almost say almost like the Wild West.
Here's one example of how data center water usage is different from other water users.
I've heard numbers like 9 million gallons a day, and of that, 60% of that is actually boiled off through what they call evaporative cooling. So we lose, we'll call it 6 million of 9 million gallons of water to the atmosphere, and that's water that citizens don't have available to drink or other facilities to reuse.
One of the concerns for lawmakers is not just the availability of water and power, but how much it will cost Georgians. Raul Bali, WABE News, the state capital.
Latino advocates in Georgia are calling on the state's lawmakers to create equal opportunities for people in their community. WABE's Melissa Fado has more from Latino Day at the state capitol on Wednesday.
Gigi Pedraza, executive director of the Latino Community Fund of Georgia, says her community isn't asking for anything extreme.
What we want is access to healthcare. We want access to quality K-12 education. We want to be able for our kids to pursue their educational aspirations and go to college or technical school or vocational school, or be able to incorporate businesses and get licenses.
And protections for Latino workers, who Pedraza says helped build up the state's poultry, agriculture, and carpet industry. That's while getting paid 77 cents to the dollar compared to white Georgians. Freshman State Senator Rashawn Kemp echoed that. Speaking to the crowd, he says Georgia Latinos have worked hard towards a better future.
A future that has helped our state maintain its status as the #1 state to do business. So, I hope that when the governor thinks about who is helping drive our state's economy, he remembers the Latinos in our community.
More than 1 million Latinos live in Georgia, according to the census, and that population is young and growing, and about half of them are registered to vote.
There is no Georgia agenda without a Latino agenda, because Georgia depends on our work, on our brains, on our talent.
Pedraza wants lawmakers to recognize that in their decision-making this session. Melissa Fato, WABE News, the state capitol.
Republicans in the Georgia Senate have advanced a bill on transgender girls playing on female sports teams in schools. The vote here came the day after President Donald Trump signed a similar policy. This is just one example of Georgia Republicans mirroring the president's priorities. WABE's Sam Greenglass reported more.
President Trump presided over a ceremonial signing in the White House East Room.
In a few moments, I'll sign a historic executive order to ban men from competing in women's sports.
Trump was surrounded by female athletes, including activist and former University of Kentucky swimmer Riley Gaines. Also there, Georgia House Speaker John Burns and Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. The day before, Burns held this big press conference in the Georgia Capitol Rotunda, rolling out his own version of the policy called the Riley Gaines Act.
The Georgia House puts forward legislation to keep boys out of girls' sports.
This session, Georgia Republicans have taken several cues from Trump. The president has given Tesla CEO Elon Musk unprecedented power to run a so-called Department of Government Efficiency, moving swiftly to slash employees, funding, and programs.
Really waste, probably fraud and abuse can be added to it.
And here in Georgia, Lieutenant Governor Jones is promoting a Red Tape Rollback Act, which he says is inspired by Musk's department. This is Senate Majority Leader Steve Gooch.
And we'll continue to look for ways to cut waste as we go forward in this session and next year as well.
Trump has also been pledging to eliminate the federal income tax on tips.
No tax on tips.
But essentially, we are exempting tip income.
And that's Senator Greg Dolezal talking about his bill to exempt tips from Georgia's state income tax. Georgia Democrats could often be heard in the last 4 years linking their priorities to President Joe Biden's, though they did not have power to implement them. But Democrats say Georgia Republicans are going out of their way to adopt Trump's ideas. Sam Greenglass, WABE News.
You're listening to WABE's Week in Review with me, Alex Helmick. For more, go to the WABE app. Live streams, videos, news, events, and much, much more. That's at the WABE app. Atlanta's Office of the Inspector General is accused of violating state law at least 50 times while issuing subpoenas to obtain city employees' financial records during investigations. WABE's Shemaine Cruz reported the story.
The City of Atlanta's cease and desist letter to Inspector General Shannon Manigault comes at the same time that the City Council is questioning her methods and authority. According to the letter, Manigault's office has been breaking a state law that requires banks to notify individuals when their financial records are subpoenaed during criminal or tax investigations. But dozens of subpoenas obtained by the city's law department show the OIG included a line stating that any disclosure could impede its investigation and to, quote, please don't notify. In a statement, a spokesperson for the OIG admitted they had been unaware of the state law until it came up during a special work session last week, and that the OIG is revising its policies and procedures to address the issue. However, the error has caught the attention of city council members, like Antonio Lewis.
My entire feelings have changed around this.
At the city council meeting on Monday, Lewis called on Manigault to resign after learning during public comment that the OIG had also allegedly subpoenaed the financial records of a private citizen.
Did we create a position and put a person in a position that has opened up us for potential lawsuits?
Legislation to overhaul the OIG has not yet fully passed. Shameen Cruz, WABE News.
And finally today, families in low-income and minority communities can face unique challenges as they try to inherit properties, especially if their parents didn't leave a will or if they don't know the steps to resolve a will. There's been an effort nationally to ease the burden on these descendants so they can keep their homes, but in Fulton County, advocates say a policy related to property taxes is only making that more difficult. WABE's Stephanie Stokes had more.
Melinda Brown doesn't want to change everything about her family home. She likes having her stepdad's funeral flag on display and a framed photo of him with her mom. It's things like the baby blue paint that's been on the wall since the 1970s that she'd like to go.
I was tired of this light blue years ago.
But she's waiting to make any more changes until she's sure she can stay. Brown first moved back to the Southwest Atlanta home 15 years ago to care for her parents. After they died, she and her siblings figured it would be simple to get the property in her name. Both her parents left wills.
But it's not that easy. It's not that easy.
Brown has since discovered probate court. She learned she had to contact every one of her parents' heirs to make sure they didn't object to the wills, a big task when her parents collectively had 13 children. And because her stepdad passed first, some of his children had already died, so she's had to reach grandchildren.
You have to have a lot of patience. Have a lot of patience. There's one thing that I do have is a lot of patience.
But she's worried the property taxes are going to put the whole effort in jeopardy. She's tried to get a homestead exemption, a tax break for homeowners at their primary residence. Because Brown is disabled, the exemption is the difference between a tax bill that's $300 and one that's $3,000. But Fulton County keeps saying no. Even when she won on appeal, the county took the exemption back.
I don't understand. And that part is frustrating because I'm on pins and needles on whether or not I can afford the next tax because taxes are not going down, they're going up.
Attorney Stacey Reynolds of Atlanta Legal Aid says the county is creating problems for descendants like her for no reason.
I mean, it's ridiculous that we have to keep going through this over and over and over and over again.
She says she's had almost 30 cases like Brown's from people working to inherit their family homes. She says the county keeps rejecting their homestead exemption because the home isn't in their name. But Reynolds says that's wrong. Under state law, she says heirs can claim the tax break even while they're finalizing their parents' estate.
You know, the laws are on the books that would allow them to give the homestead exemptions to legacy homeowners who desperately need the help so that they can afford the home while they're going through this probate process.
She says it's not just Brown. For a lot of her clients, the probate process can take a while. In the meantime, the consequences of the county removing the property tax break are serious. Her clients are like Brown on fixed incomes, but they're in homes where values and taxes have increased significantly.
And then if you take away that homestead exemption, you know, all bets are lost. It's probably going to be foreclosed.
Studies show inherited property is uniquely vulnerable to tax foreclosure. That's why other states and cities have made efforts to help descendants. Texas and Pennsylvania, for example, have passed laws that outline how they can receive a homestead exemption. If Georgia already allows this, national advocates are surprised a county would be resistant.
I don't know why a local government would not accept that.
Andrea Bopp-Stark is a lawyer with the National Consumer Law Center.
When they are supposedly looking out for the well-being of homeowners, trying to keep homeowners in their homes.
She says it should be in local government's best interest to keep descendants in their homes. A foreclosure can lead to blight, dragging down the properties around it.
You know, so you have diminishing property values, but then you also have a person who is now unhoused and needs to find rental housing.
She says that will be a challenge in the current housing market. Which gets to something else. There are reasons this is more likely to affect low-income and minority homeowners. Estate planning can be unaffordable. Historically, Black families may not have felt they could trust attorneys, Veronica McClendon says. She's a lawyer in Macon. McClendon says helping these families preserve their homes makes them self-sufficient.
If people can take advantage of their inherited properties, that just takes more of the burden off of our social services from people needing to depend on government resources.
Fulton County's Board of Assessors oversees homestead exemption issues. While they said they couldn't comment on pending matters, in a statement they acknowledged that state law allows heirs to get the property tax break. But Reynolds with Legal Aid says it's clear that acknowledgement hasn't reached county staff. She faces a struggle with every case.
It's a hardship on people.
Meanwhile, Brown is taking every step she can to get her family's home into her name. Because of the pandemic, it's taken 6 years. She says it's already stressful. And with these tax issues, Fulton County is adding to that.
It sends a message they don't care. And they're not looking at the bigger picture that, this is someone's home. This is not just a property to me, it's a home. And I'm fighting for my home.
Legal Aid is appealing her case, but in the meantime, she's still on the hook for her tax payments. And she learned the county isn't just removing her homestead exemption from this year's bill. It also adjusted her taxes for previous years. The total amount the county is now charging her is $10,000. Stephanie Stokes, WABE News.
That's all for the show this week. My thanks to the WABE News team for another great week of work. I'm Alex Helmick. Thank you for supporting WABE and for listening to The Week in Review.